Hello and welcome to English Stories with Louisa. I'm your host, Louisa, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of exploring fascinating stories, learning new things, and improving your English skills. In this channel, we'll dive into a world of captivating tales, from classic literature to modern narratives, all presented in a fun and engaging way. So sit back, relax, and let's get started on this adventure together. Loud music at 2 a.m. I found the perfect way to shut her up. Ever been so tired you can feel it in your bones? That kind of exhaustion that makes your head throb and your thoughts feel like molasses. Now, imagine that feeling isn't from a late-night study session or a long day of work. It's because someone, a neighbor you have to see every single day, is actively, maliciously keeping you awake. And when you ask them to stop, they just laugh in your face. This is a story about that exact feeling. The slow, simmering rage that builds when someone steals your peace, your rest, and your ability to function. It's also a story about a simple, beautiful plan to get it all back. If you've ever had a terrible neighbor or dreamed of serving justice to someone who wronged you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and join our community, because this is one of the most satisfying Reddit revenge stories you'll ever hear. And trust me, you'll want to stay for the ending. My story starts back in my college days, living in one of those classic campus dorms. You know the kind, cinder block walls, thin as paper, and a hallway that smelled perpetually of instant ramen and stale coffee. It was the kind of place where privacy was a myth and you could hear every conversation, every laugh, and every terrible song choice. My neighbor's name was Sarah. On the surface, she was just your average college student. But in practice, she was a one-woman noise pollution event. She wasn't some evil villain with a master plan to torment the entire floor. She was just inconsiderate, loud, and completely, utterly entitled. Her schedule was a mystery. She seemed to wake up sometime after noon and came alive after midnight. That's when her nightly concert series would begin. We're not talking quiet ambient music. We're talking bass-heavy rap, high-energy pop, and everything in between, all turned up to a volume that made the pictures on my wall vibrate. For me, this wasn't just a minor annoyance. It was a crisis. I was a serious student with early morning classes, and I needed my sleep. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the bass drum thumping through the wall like a second heartbeat. Felt like my brain was being rattled inside my skull. I tried everything. Earplugs, pillows over my head, even sleeping with white noise playing on my phone. Nothing worked. The music was just too loud. And it wasn't just me. The entire hallway was a walking, sleep-deprived zombie horde. We all tried to talk to her. My other neighbors would knock on her door, pleading. I'd even send a text. But she always had the same, infuriatingly simple response. She'd just laugh it off and say, "Relax, it's college." That phrase, "Relax, it's college." It wasn't a casual dismissal. It was a declaration of war. It meant she didn't just not care about our peace. She actively believed our requests were unreasonable. That our need for sleep was a laughable weakness. It was a complete and total lack of respect. The tension in the hall grew with every late-night session. We felt powerless. The RA was useless. A guy who spent more time playing video games than enforcing quiet hours. Sarah was untouchable. Then came the night before my most important exam of the semester, a calculus final. I had been pulling all-nighters for a week, and I desperately needed a solid 5 hours of sleep. Midnight rolled around, and right on cue, I heard the telltale thumping of her stereo. I felt a surge of pure, desperate adrenaline. I couldn't just lie there and take it. I got out of bed, my mind a foggy mess, and went to her door. I knocked, a soft, polite series of taps. The music blared on. I knocked again, a little louder. Finally, she opened the door, a can of soda in her hand, a smug look on her face. "Hey, can you please lower the volume a bit?" I asked, my voice a quiet plea. "I have a huge exam in the morning, and I've got to get some sleep." She just looked at me, a smirk spreading across her face. "Sure," she said so sweetly. And then, right in front of me, she reached inside her room and cranked the volume knob. not just a little bit but all the way. The walls vibrated. The air filled with a roaring wave of bass. I just stood there speechless. She closed the door, her laugh echoing in the hallway. I walked back to my room, my hands shaking. I felt a hot, burning anger rise in my chest. It wasn't just the noise anymore. It was her pure, unadulterated disrespect. It was the smirk. The way she had deliberately and cruelly made a show of ignoring my request. My frustration turned into something else. Something cold and calculating. Lying awake, staring at the ceiling as the walls throbbed, a plan began to form in my mind. It was a simple plan, but it was perfect. I knew Sarah had a secret weakness. She wasn't an early bird. In fact, she was a complete night owl who hated mornings with a passion. She was notorious for sleeping until noon, sometimes later. The injustice of it all fueled me. She got to sleep all day, and I got to be miserable all night. I decided to flip the script. The next morning after my exam, I felt a new sense of purpose. I went back to my room, a quiet smile on my face. That night, I slept for 10 hours straight. I set my alarm for 6:30 a.m. The next morning it was time. The entire dorm hallway was dead quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioner. My alarm went off and I hit the snooze. Then I grabbed my little Bluetooth speaker, placed it squarely against the thin wall we shared, and turned the volume up. All the way up. I hit play. And out came the most obnoxious, relentlessly cheerful bubblegum pop I could find. We're talking early 2000s boy bands. The kind of stuff with synthesized horns and percussive claps that get stuck in your brain for a week. The music was a sonic assault of pure joy. The exact opposite of what you want to hear at 6:30 a.m. For the first 30 seconds I heard nothing. Then a low groan. Then a furious rustle of sheets. I could practically feel her irritation seeping through the wall. She stumbled out of her room, her hair a mess, eyes half closed, looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "Dude, are you serious?" she groaned. I just smiled and said, "What? Relax, it's college." She glared at me, turned, and slammed her door shut. The next day, same time, same music. I saw her sneak a pillow over her head as she went into her room. The day after that, I heard a thud from her room. She must have tried to move her bed. By day 3, I could hear her pacing. I heard her muttering to herself. When she came out of her room, she saw me and her face fell. She was defeated. The smirk was gone. She just looked at me with a pleading expression. "Please," she begged, her voice a tired whisper. "Just stop. I need to sleep." I just smiled and in my most cheerful voice said, "Relax, Sarah. It's college." The look on her face was priceless. It was a combination of anger, defeat, and dawning realization. She finally understood. The tables had turned. She was the one begging and I was the one laughing. I kept it up for a full week. Every morning, like clockwork, I delivered her daily dose of justice. Her late-night concerts. They mysteriously stopped. She never apologized. She never admitted defeat. But the hallway was quiet, finally. And that silence was more satisfying than any apology. It was a lesson in karma. In college, you learn a lot more than what's in your textbooks. You learn that actions have consequences. And that sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about getting even, but about teaching a quiet lesson in respecting others.